Welcome, everyone, to the Awaken Catholic Show. I almost said church. Welcome to the Awaken Catholic Show. I am your host, Nick Della Torre, and I'm here with a really special guest, Ali Dar. Really excited for today's conversation, Ali. But before we begin, roll that intro. I don't know if you're ready, Ali.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? I don't know if I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? I'm a little scared. Like, we're going to talk about some heavy stuff today, and it's going to be intense, but it's going to be awesome. We're also going to talk about exciting stuff. So before we get into it, though, I just want to share with you that if you want to support the making of this show and other shows like it on Awaken Catholic, you can check out awakencatholic.org/donate, and you can become a part of this growing movement of people that want to make cutting-edge media and substantive Catholic content for people to get on their phones, in their homes, on their TVs, on their computers, iPads, you name it, we're there. And we're creating content that is changing lives, transforming hearts. And so if you want to be a part of what makes that possible, visit awakencatholic.org/donate. And you can do a monthly or one-time gift that is tax deductible. Secondly, if you want to increase the magnitude of power and awesomeness of your prayer life, check out the Hallow app. We're really excited to have partnered with Hallow, and through our website and through our link, you can get 1 month free of the premium version of their app. So definitely check out Hallow through our website or on the link on the screen. And yeah, it's beautiful. All right, Ali.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is the year 2020.
Oh my.
And we're hurting.
We're hurting.
It's a weird year.
It's been fun.
But I find that there are people in the world in 2020 that are a positive, shining light in the midst of this dark and bizarre situation we're all in. And I feel that you are one of those people that is making a positive difference. And you're using a platform that I'm actually interested in hearing how it developed. Instagram. You are an Instagram influencer, and
it's weird.
It's weird, right? Like, what does that even mean? And obviously you didn't wake up one day and just think, you know what, I'm going to be an influencer. Like when it really happens for the right reasons, the right way, like you're doing it because you are really making a difference in people's lives. And so I want to kind of just unpack who you are, what you're doing. You also have this really cool thing that I'm excited to hear about, Always Enough. This was a gift from Ali to the Awaken Catholic studio here. And yeah, so tell us, who are you and what are you doing?
Where should I start? I mean, I feel like there's so much.
Start at the very beginning. It's a pretty good place
I was born in Worcester, Ohio.
Oh, that wasn't the beginning, Ali. We're Catholic.
That is true. 9 months before that, my mom and dad made a very great decision. One of their only good decisions, by the way. But that's another topic. So yeah, I'm Ali. I guess I'm influencing people on Instagram, which still feels weird.
Yeah.
I started Instagramming about 6 years ago. I think that's when it really started. And just sharing our life. We have 5 little boys. We're Catholic. We both work from home. We started homeschooling a couple years ago, actually. So we were ahead of the 2020 homeschooling craziness.
You were doing it before it was cool.
We were.
Yeah.
We started. No, I'm just kidding. We did not start homeschooling.
Wow, your Instagram influencing is very powerful.
Yeah, I started the homeschool movement, everyone. But I just started sharing our life, what we were doing, just normal stuff that you think nobody would care about. Like, what are you cleaning your kitchen with? What are you feeding your kids? Just silly stuff. And it kind of snowballed into just connecting with women all across the country, which has been beautiful. And I really try to use the space to keep it real and raw and show things that other women don't talk about, or they only talk to their closest friends in private about. I like to talk about those topics on social media.
Yeah.
And some might not agree with that, but I think it helps a lot of women heal and see that they aren't alone in some of their darkest times. So
that is beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of that darkest time type stuff for you in a little bit later in the show. But yeah, so you just started posting and you started sharing your lives as a family through your account. And people started to latch onto your messaging and the stuff that you were sharing. What do you think it was about what you were delivering that, because everybody's Instagramming now, everybody's trying to be an influencer. Like, what are you doing that on an organic level people were really connecting with?
I think I'm just being myself. Like, I'm on there without makeup on. I look like a train wreck most days. Like, our house is a mess. So I think I'm not trying to influence anyone. I think that might be, that sounds weird,
it's
but
authentic.
It's authentic. I'm not planning my posts. I'm not like strategic. I'm just posting what's happening and what I'm thinking and my own personal growth through life.
And the other cool thing about that is you are a Catholic person who cares about your faith, but you're also not slamming them over the head with your faith, because you're acknowledging like you have an audience that's broader than just your Catholic identity. So how do you deliver to an audience that authenticity that is a diverse audience without making them feel alienated as an audience when you are authentically a Catholic person? Like, how do you walk that line and how do you juggle that?
I mean, just like I juggle everything else, I just share what I do. I don't expect anyone else to live the life that we're living. I think we do have a really good marriage, a really good family life, and I think that shines through, and the root of that is our faith. I also know that not everybody has went to church. I didn't grow up going to church. I didn't become Catholic till I was 23. So I know that people are trying to find their way on their own journey. So I feel like I'm kind of that middle step that they can see, okay, she didn't grow up this way, but she's leading her family in such a way. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so now you've developed this following, and you're kind of you've evolved your messaging, and you're almost approaching it like a ministry in a sense. What is the connection with like this new? Tell us about Always Enough and how that kind of ties into that whole picture.
Yeah, so Always Enough started from me never feeling enough growing up. Yeah, I see it. Growing up, never felt enough. And even when I was a mom, I just never felt mom enough, wife enough. I just felt like I was failing in every area. And I was like, it's because I was honestly looking at people on social media. I was like, my house is never going to be that clean. Like, I'm never going to look that good. My husband doesn't do that for me. And I was just constantly feeling less than. And I was like, you know what? I'm enough. If my house is a mess in this season, or if I don't know everything about the Catholic faith, I'm still enough because I'm showing up and I'm who I am, and I can grow in all the areas that I'm struggling in. But just knowing you're enough in who you are is huge. So that's why I started Always Enough, which is women's retreats. We do weekend, we do weekend retreats. Clearly pandemic.
Right.
We had one right before the pandemic in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was beautiful, perfect timing actually, because we got shut down like the next 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
But also clothing, Always Enough. And women are wearing it all across the country.
That's
and
so cool.
It's just an easy message to remind somebody when you're in the store, can't talk with your face mask on, like you're always enough. Yeah. So that's how that started.
What an important message too, because it's so easy in this world, like you're saying, like more than ever with social media. It's easy for people to fake a perfect life.
Yes.
And then what that does, like we always, before social media was what it is and we had all these influencers and stuff, there was always the talk about magazines and the deception of like the cover of those magazines and the photos in it and how that made women feel like they weren't enough. And honestly, men probably experience the same thing. You walk around any men's fitness magazine and you're like, well, I'm never going to look like Allie's husband. That man's beautiful. He's got big muscles, wavy hair, tall. It's like Scandinavian, like the epitome of Scandinavian glory. Is he Scandinavian?
No.
All right, just kidding. Well, he looks like he could be.
He looks good.
Yeah.
5 kids,
that man
everyone.
could have been a Viking. Like, anyways, I'm going to get off my man crush here. So yeah, it's like this idea of comparison, and it's always been there in different ways. And as we evolve as a society and progress, the ways in which that's going to impact evolve and progress. And like it was the magazines and now it's social media. And I love that you're using the platform that so often tears people down. You're using that to build people up. And that's so beautiful. And I know of so many people that are constantly wrestling with this question of, do I just leave Facebook and Instagram? Do I set it? And it's because they are encountering that comparison and they are finding themselves feeling like less, but you know, provisions like what you're doing really kind of help to reclaim that territory. And I just hope that it continues to grow.
Me too. And I always tell people, if somebody on social media is making you feel less than or making you second guess yourself, unfollow.
Yeah.
And start following. There's so many amazing pages to follow, so many uplifting pages. Just follow those, and that's all that's going to show up on your feed. So just unfollow anybody who's not making you feel your best self.
Amen. Yeah. You only get one life, so don't screw it up with social media. All right. Before we continue, Allie, we need to bring back the highly demanded, widely appreciated, life-changing segment called Catholic Weird Stuff.
Catholic weird stuff. Why do they do the things that they do? Let's learn some Catholic weird stuff. It's super weird.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be talking about the Catholic weird stuff we do in Mass. Now, there's probably a lot of stuff that could be said about the weird stuff we do in Mass, but specifically, we're going to talk about what is known as Catholic calisthenics. Now, I've seen a little bit on your Instagram feed about calisthenics or like husband, just energy and workout and stuff.
Yeah.
So your husband's doing that? Is that okay?
Yep.
So, it's funny to me, like this notion of Catholic calisthenics, like it's obviously meant to be, when it's used by some people, it's a term that is like with endearment and like, oh, isn't it cute what we do? And then for some people, it's like, wow, it's like a derogatory thing. Like, wow, look at those weirdos. And so what we're going to talk about, if you don't know what I'm talking about with the calisthenics, when we're in Mass, Catholics do a lot of sitting, kneeling, standing, in reverse order, in any number of orders, over and over again, all throughout the course of what is usually an hour-long Mass. And to an outside perspective, it's like, what are these people up to? And you used to not be Catholic.
I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
No, I just want to sit here quietly.
Right. So I just want to, this is like kind of a quick one. So for one thing, it's important to address like what those different postures represent. So for the sitting, a way to approach this is that sitting is like a posture of listening and reception. So like right now we're having a conversation and we're sitting, and it's kind of this, to me, it's an expression of I'm willing to rest in this moment and to not quickly like move to the next thing. And so I'm willing to just sit and receive the dialogue with you, receive your words and hear what you have to say. And so this posture of sitting predisposes us to like that posture of reception and interaction with someone else. And in the case of the Mass, that someone else is God. Do you have anything to say about the sitting? Any thoughts?
That's my favorite part. It's the sitting.
Especially when you're tired, right?
Yes.
All right. The second one I want to address is standing. So standing, and this is there are parts of the standing in Mass that are actually like weirdly debated. But what I'm going to address first is that it's a posture of respect, unity, and it's also a posture of like declaration, right? So anytime you're watching an inspirational movie about a teacher or school or something, like, you'll have a student stand up and they're like making a declarative statement, and then like more and more people will stand up, and what they're saying with their bodies is like, I want you to really pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm making a declaration of what I believe. And so that's one of the ways to look at that, as well as respect. Like someone walks into a room, there's been this long-standing tradition in human history where you stand up if someone walks into a room to greet them, or if someone is approaching a dinner table, in particular if you're a man, when it's a woman approaching the dinner table, you stand to welcome her to the table. And so it is like this gesture of respect. And then similar to like the declarative statement, unity, like similar, in those movies that are inspirational, when someone stands up and more people stand up, they're saying, I'm unified with whatever is happening in that moment. So along those lines, in the Mass, we will stand very often for various parts of the Mass where we're praying. And then we'll also stand in reverence and respect to receive the word of God in the gospel, the good news. And so, any thoughts on that?
No, I never even looked at it that way. And I really like that. And I can pass that on to my children as why they're standing.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I love that.
You're welcome. And then the final one, kneeling. Kneeling is interesting because of it's a posture of humility and adoration. And so it's like, even historically, like when we look at the interaction of like, I'm not saying we're peasants, but if you look at like peasants with kings and queens and royalty, like you kneel out of a sense of humility and reverence for their kind of lordship over us. And with the Lord, we kneel in reverence of his lordship over us. And we're saying like, I love you, I worship you, I adore you. And it's just a way of expressing that with our bodies. And so there's probably a lot more to be said about kneeling, because kneeling is such a beautiful way to express prayer. But yeah, there it is. So what I would say in terms of explaining why it has any value or any place in the Mass is we are into, like I talked about in the last Catholic Weird Stuff segment last week with Father Eric Schild, we are not just corporeal beings. We don't just have flesh and bone. We are also spiritual beings, and we are fully integrated. And when we want to express something, it is all the more integrated for us to express it with our spirits. Alina's taking the paper away from me. She doesn't want me to read from it. It's all the more meaningful for us to express what we're trying to express, not just through words, but with our bodies. And so, like, I can tell Alina, I love you. Alina's my wife. I can tell her, I love you. But how much more meaningful is it for me to say I love you, followed up with a hug, or like an embrace, or even a kiss, engaging my body in the statement that I'm making? And it's kind of this more comprehensive and it becomes more meaningful way to communicate and express something. So that's why we're, through the Mass, engaging our bodies so that our bodies are also saying what our words are saying. So yeah,
I love like all of that, because I'm still like, why am I standing? Like,
that's awesome.
no, that makes perfect sense. I love it. It's not weird. It's normal.
Unless you don't know. And then it's weird. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Allie, for that segment of Catholic Weird Stuff. So going back to the person of Allie Dar, we kind of touched on the fact that you haven't always been Catholic.
No.
So why don't we dive into a little bit of that faith journey? Because I think it obviously has a huge bearing on everything, both, what you're doing with your platform as an influencer, as well as your work with Always Enough, as well as kind of the heavier stuff we're going to get into in a little bit. Creating context and laying the groundwork. The person of Allie Dar, faith journey.
Faith journey. I didn't go to church at all growing up. It wasn't a priority to my parents, so it did not become a priority to me. And we just never went. So when I met my now husband, Jordan, he was Catholic, and he asked me, he's like, "What's your faith?" And I'm like, "Normal." And he's like, "What?" Like, because I didn't know, like, am I Christian? And like, I knew God and I liked God and this concept of God, but I didn't have an actual faith. So he was Catholic, and he would wake up every Sunday morning while we were dating, and he would go to Mass. And I was like, huh. And he was always happy and always like, just felt good and was positive. And I was like, maybe I should go.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go to Mass. And I started going and learning about the Catholic faith, and decided that when we got engaged that I would become Catholic as well. But I was the naughty Catholic. We had a baby before marriage. And when I was baptized, I was 39 weeks pregnant with our first son. And I joke that he was like double baptized because he was in me and then got his baptism later on.
That's great.
But yeah, I didn't become Catholic until 39 weeks pregnant, 23 years old. It wasn't the perfect story. But getting baptized just felt amazing.
Yeah.
Like just knowing that I was loved, and not that I could do no wrong, because we can do a lot of wrong, but it just felt good to finally have that foundation.
Interesting. So I was struck by, like, let me ask you a question. Jordan's life, when you were dating and he was going to Mass, and was his life perfect?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, he was joyful.
He was.
And you were drawn to faith through the joy that you witnessed in him, and the dynamic that you knew that his life wasn't perfect, yet he was joyful. And I think that is a hugely important message, because we, in our own lives, when we're expecting that our relationship with Christ and the church is going to make our life easier, we're going to be let down, and we're going to misappropriate the role that relationship is meant to have for us. What do you think it was about him and his relationship with the Lord and the church that, even through difficulty and challenges and whatever he was facing, allowed him to have that joy?
I'm not sure. It just seemed like he had a different perspective for things and didn't see just normal day-to-day upsets. He didn't take them too serious and would just kind of like, okay, it is what it is in a sense. But I think it's because he had that foundation with Christ and knew there was something bigger, that the little day-to-day things weren't bothering him the way that they bothered me because I didn't have a foundation.
Wow, that's so huge. That's beautiful. I feel like that's super convicting too for myself, and maybe if you're watching or listening right now, you know, when we're going through trials, like we are being watched. Like people are observing what a relationship with God means through the way that we live it out. And we can literally be the difference between someone entering into the fullness of truth in the church in relationship with him or not. And even for me, I think back to my Catholic schooling, and I have really good relationships with a lot of the teachers that I had back then now. But at the time, like, you know, these are great people, but like at the time, the way that Catholic schooling was put together, and things have changed a lot. It's been, I'm an older guy now, so it's been quite a number of decades, but it was really hard to understand the value or what the faith was offering that would, that my life would be better for. So essentially after high school, like I was done.
Really?
I was done with faith. And to me, a lot of it was like, we would talk about, you know, we would have huge banners on the walls throughout the school halls, identifying life skills and commandments and all these good things in theory, but then we wouldn't see those life skills really being executed by our teachers. And we saw misrepresentation of discipleship
values.
And value. Yeah. And so you know, what we observed, like I was between that and some of the stupid crap going on in my family, I was like, there's really nothing here for me. Like God doesn't have anything to offer me.
So you were kind of pushed away.
I was pushed away.
By how strict it was? Or
I would say by the poor example of discipleship.
Okay.
Like the poor example of what you saw in Jordan in contrast, where like a faith life does lead to joy and love and is meant to. And in contrast, I was seeing angry teachers who hated their students, or at least hated the way we were behaving, and so weren't able to love us well, or be as patient as they could have been. Now, granted, my class was really something. So there's that. But so I'm taking away from that, just even that part of the story, like the importance of being a proper representation of the faith. And that is what it is to be a Christian, is to be a little Christ. So yeah, I'm feeling convicted by that. I'm definitely going to walk away even just with that as a major point. Okay. So then you become Catholic, 39 weeks pregnant, and basically, how many kids do you have now?
We have 5.
You have 5 boys.
5 boys.
How many years have been married?
We just celebrated. Hold up.
Oh boy.
Was it 11? Yeah, my son's 11. So
Hopefully
it's 11.
Jordan's not watching
I'm like,
this.
was it 12? Like, but I'm planning for the 12th.
Yeah.
You know, the gifts. You got to plan really good.
Oh, okay. I got you.
But yeah, so 5 kids.
Awesome. Okay.
11 years.
11 years of marriage, 5 kids, 5 boys that, okay. So you recently had a really, really challenging thing happen. You have 6 kids.
We actually have 8.
You have 8. Mm-hmm. All right. Talk to me about that.
Okay. So we have had 3 losses. We had one really early on between 2 and 3. It was like 7 weeks, and it was our first miscarriage, and I was angry. Didn't understand why it was happening to me. I didn't take it very well at all. I wasn't really talking about it. And it was just hard. But then we got pregnant. So I'm like, okay, it was just a fluke. We're good. Everything's great. And we went on to have 2 more boys, completely healthy. And so then I just chalked that one miscarriage up to, you know, that just happens.
Yeah.
And then we went on to have, it's hard to keep count because I do keep count of our miscarriages, but I count my boys that are with me every single, like walking alive by me every day. Yes. Yeah. So we were pregnant with our 5th son, Henry, and we lost him at 20 weeks. And that was, it was the worst because we were past the point of you're safe after 12, 13 weeks, you're supposed to be pretty safe that this pregnancy is going to be fine. So to get halfway through, I was showing, everybody knew I was pregnant. It was awful.
Well, you develop a relationship at that point, differently than at 7 weeks.
Oh, so much. We had a name, we had clothes, our boys knew, the school they went to knew, everybody knew. And so it was hard. That was the hardest. And the fact that I used to cry every time I would talk about it shows the healing process that I've got to walk with my faith. And so we lost Henry. But then we went on to have Teddy. Perfectly healthy, sweet little boy. He's our rainbow. We have 2 rainbow babies. Rainbows are a baby after loss.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
I love rainbows. That's why I love rainbows. There's
That's
one
awesome.
on my necklace. And then this year we got pregnant again. And I was like, all right, 2020, you're looking up. Everything is looking up.
Wait, to have that be a statement, look, can we just pause there? 2020's looking good. What month was that?
Wait, June. Wait, was it May or June? I think it was the end of May. Yeah. I was like, okay, we're going to have a new baby. Like, things are good, which is crazy in itself, right? Babies are crazy.
Yeah.
But everything was fine. We had the ultrasound. Everything was looking good. And then when I went back at 11 weeks, there was no heartbeat. And I had an inkling that something was off, just like intuition wise. I just wasn't feeling it. And my husband's like, it's okay. Like, stop thinking negative. Just have faith that everything's going to be okay. And I walked into the ultrasound and I told the lady, I'm like, I don't think this is going to go well.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I was like, I just don't feel like everything's right. And she pulled the baby up on the ultrasound and she's like, you're right. And I feel like moms have that intuition when something's wrong. So he was a boy. So we lost another son just last month. And with COVID, it got even trickier because you can't go to the hospital and they do like a procedure called a DNC where they clear everything out. I couldn't do that because I had to be COVID tested. So they were pushing off this process of us having our baby, and I had to be COVID tested. And then in the meantime, I had like this week where I was just supposed to hang out until they could take the baby out of me. It was awful.
Gosh.
And so they were like, you can try to deliver the baby at home with this drug. It's like the worst case scenario. And it just kept getting worse. And so we take this drug and I start bleeding and we're like, okay, we're past this. We're good. And I start like being positive and healing through this. And then the next week I wake up in labor pain, gushing blood. An ambulance had to come, had to be rushed to the ER to have an emergency DNC, have 2 blood transfusions, and like everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Wow.
And it was just not fun, but it reminded me like how blessed we are, not only to have my health, but to have the 5 boys that we do have. And loss it's not okay. I don't have a reason for why it happens to women, and it happens to 1 in 4 pregnancies. And so we just went through that in August. So last month was kind of a total train wreck for us. But the whole time, I just kept reminding myself, I've been through this before. I can get through this again. And that's all I can do is just keep one foot in front of the other and just keep going.
Wow. So through what an ordeal. And I'm so sorry that was what it was. I mean, that's like it really is a worst case scenario for if that's going to happen, which sucks in the first place. Man. And so in that process of wrestling in any given one of those moments with the reality of what is happening right now to you, like what was the dynamic between you and God through that?
So our first pregnancy, I was pissed at God.
Yeah.
Like, why would you, or the first loss, I was like, why would you do this to me? I took it as an attack against him. And I just pulled back a little bit. And then our second loss is actually when I started to see how much I needed him, because it was one of those situations where I had always said, I will never be able to get through a loss where you actually deliver the baby and have to see the baby. I'll never be able to get through it. But slowly I got through it. And it was because I clung to him. And one thing that I always tell people is God will give you more than you can handle. There's that notion that God won't give you more than you can handle, but he does, so we can cling to him through the process and through growing through it. So this time I had that to fall back on, our last loss. So I wouldn't say it was easier, but my perspective is so much different and my relationship with God is so much different. So it really helped the healing process. But I mean, it's going to be a continual process.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. What do you think the biggest thing that you've learned from this would be?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. Not to take life for granted, like any moment. So I had the blood transfusions and I was literally told to lay in bed. I have 5 kids and a husband and 2 businesses. Like, I'll just lay in bed. But I had to. Like, I would get up to go do something and I'd be dizzy. So I actually had to like rest. And so in those moments, I got to just thank God that I was still alive, because when I was losing all the blood, I told the doctor, like, don't let me die.
Yeah.
And when you have those, maybe I wasn't near death, but it felt like I was near death. When you have those experiences, you start to really see what's important and what isn't important. So I think just not to take life for granted. My life, my husband's life, everybody's lives.
Yeah. Wow. And I think about also loss that we've experienced in, you know, the some of our friends who've also had children that passed even after birth recently. And I just think about the pain of that and like, you know, those are people, right? That we're talking about, even when they're still in utero, like those are people. And I think about how easy it is to default to this, like, you know, this common, why God, why would you allow this to happen? And obviously God does not want us to suffer. He doesn't like want things to be terrible. He doesn't, like, he created that person for a reason, right? And I think it's an important distinction to draw upon. God has a perfect will and a permissive will. In his perfect will, this is just an easier contrast, he created us, he created the Garden of Eden, he created all things, and he wanted us to be in a great relationship with him. That was his perfect will. In his permissive will, he allowed us to make a mistake and to step away from him because he loves us and he wants us to have free will. And in a similar way, like in that action, when we broke the universe where it no longer works the way that it was supposed to, he's like, that's permissive will as opposed to his perfect will. He doesn't want to give us children that we're not going to get to spend our lives with, that will outgrow us, right? But he allows those things because it's a part of the broken nature that we have now, and he allows us to journey with him through those challenges. So to me, it's like it's so easy to latch onto this anger at God, which is such a natural thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's not. It's so important to remember. He doesn't want. It's not his perfect will. He doesn't want us to suffer. He doesn't want us to experience loss. He wanted us to live forever. And he reinstituted that through his son, Jesus Christ, who came to literally hit the reboot button on all of creation. And we will see the culmination of that on the last day when we will suffer no more. I didn't realize the camera was on my face for this. Man, yeah, gosh. Allie, I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story with us. I wasn't even expecting that we'd be able to go there because I want to be sensitive to, you know, but your willingness when we were interacting leading up to the show and you were like, let's talk about this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so many women suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And they're also angry at God, but then they're angry at their body. And it just makes me so sad that there's women out there who aren't talking about this and who feel like they're alone when you're in reality not alone at all.
Yeah. And what you just said is so huge about being angry at their bodies. Like why, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this right?
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with our bodies.
You
are always enough.
Are always enough.
It's true though. I mean, oh goodness. It's true.
And it's also interesting, even taking a step back from being pregnant and challenges in pregnancy. I have so many friends who struggle to get pregnant.
Yes. And
that question of what is wrong with me?
Yes. That is so, and it's so hard too, because we haven't had trouble. So I always feel bad.
Yeah.
When people are struggling to get pregnant. And I try to be cautious about it when we get pregnant, when we talk about pregnancy, because I'm constantly just praying for the moms out there who have yet to carry a baby or who have had recurrent miscarriages again and again and again. And it breaks my heart, honestly. I think every woman should be able to carry a baby and have children.
Yeah. And the beauty, though, is like, we are all called to a sense of fatherhood and motherhood, but it can take different forms, right? Like, obviously, from a vocational standpoint, if you are called to be a priest or a nun or a consecrated religious of different kinds, like, you can have spiritual fatherhood. Even as a married person with biological children, I have spiritual fatherhood over the people that I'm discipling or the people that I'm trying to lead into the heart of God. Like, there is that dynamic. And then there are so many children in need through adoption and fostering. We have one of our team members, Libby, she and her husband are so beautiful in the way that they minister through fostering. And they are constantly, you know, if there's a weird thing going on in the state, like some kind of a criminal situation, like where a parent was committing a crime, and like they'll arrest the parent, and Libby and her husband will take in the child. That's amazing. Even if it's for 24 hours, you know, that's like amazing. Yeah. And there are people that I just have so much admiration for, because they're conscious of things that are outside of the box that we don't necessarily always think about. And they're meeting those needs because they see those needs. So, man, so what is one thing, if you could, if people were going to walk away with like one idea or one thing to carry with them from today, what would that be?
Oh man. I guess it would be like, you can recreate yourself at any given moment. Oh, was that good?
Yes.
Is that good?
So good. I love that.
Because every day is a chance to start something new, a new journey, a new mindset, a new faith journey, whatever it is. Like, you can recreate yourself at any given moment. When I met my husband, I was drinking. I was not going to church. I thought maybe I'd have 2 kids, and now we're in a church pew every week with our kids, homeschooling.
5 of them.
Yeah, it's just like, you can recreate anything in your life at any given moment. And it really helps to be surrounded by positive people.
Yep.
And we were talking about it earlier on social media, where if you're following people who make you feel less than, unfollow and only flood yourself with positivity.
Oh my gosh, that's so huge. For example, I just saw a post of yours where you were holding up a sticky note that said, "Nothing changes if nothing changes."
Yes, that's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, I actually coined a line along those lines.
Oh, okay.
It basically was saying the same thing, but you know, it was me. It was something. Now that I've read yours, I forget what I said. But it was,
because mine's better.
Wow. All right, we're gonna have a little competition with inspirational quotes here, but no, it's so true. Like, you have the power to change your reality, not in like a new age, like weird way, but our choices bear fruit, good or bad.
Yeah.
And we can start pivoting
right now.
The way we make choices, the way that we program our psyches, we can change.
Yes. And that's the beautiful thing about life, is at any given moment, change.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds easier when I say it than to actually do it. It does take hard work, but nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's the quote he was talking about. If you don't change anything, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, which isn't that the definition of insanity?
Yeah, someone had said that. It's not like a literal definition, but it's like a good quote.
Yeah.
I think it was like Einstein.
Yeah, I think it was Einstein.
Yeah. It's truth. I mean, it's absolutely truth. And we do that so readily.
Like, why isn't it changing?
Yeah.
Because you're not changing anything.
Yeah, and then we'll get excited, like, oh, so if I do make changes, whatever. But then when it comes down to the brass tacks and you have to actually make the changes, it's like, oh, but I can just keep that. No.
Yes, you have to change
it.
Change, yes.
And now I experienced that when I was experiencing my conversion, back into faith and for like a real relationship with Jesus. Like, I had to change everything. I had been working to be an opera singer. I had like so many things, and I just I dropped out of that school. Like I had to basically abandon a whole contingent of friendships that I had that were toxic or just not going to edify me as a person. Like, you have to change everything.
Yeah.
So, Allie, it has been a joy.
So fun.
Oh my gosh. Where can people find you?
On Instagram at Allie Dar. That's where I'm at.
And where can people find Always Enough?
At Always Enough, there's 2 pages. There's one for the tribe, Always Enough Tribe, and there's another page for the shop, Always Enough Shop.
Fantastic. And this mug, I'm guessing, is in that shop.
It is, and it holds 15 ounces.
No way.
Yep.
That's a lot of ounces.
That's a lot of coffee.
That's more than 14 ounces.
One more.
And I honestly like the drinking experience with this mug. It is a pleasurable drinking experience. The way that the lip comes up and it just kind of, it cuddles with my bottom lip, you know?
I designed it that way.
No way.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Allie, thank you so much for being on the show today and kind of bearing your soul and sharing your story.
I hope it helped.
Oh, I helped me, and I'm sure, I'm extremely confident that our viewers and listeners have benefited from this in one way or another. If you want to help make this type of content possible, if you want to make this show and other shows like it on Awaken Catholic possible, check out the Awaken Nation, where you can join forces with people from all over the country that are trying to reach people where they're at, on their phones, in their homes. It's awakencatholic.org/donate, and you can do a recurring or one-time gift. And then additionally, check out the Hallow app. And if you get it through us, you get 1 free month of their premium subscription. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Awaken Catholic Show, and we'll see you next time.
This show and all media on Awaken Catholic is made possible by the Awaken Nation and the Hallow app. The Awaken Nation is a community of people like you who support all things Awaken for as cheap as a cup of coffee a week and get access to exclusive content. Learn more by visiting awakencatholic.org/donate. Hallow is the only audio-guided Catholic prayer app focused on contemplative prayer and traditional Catholic meditation such as Lectio Divina, Daily Examen, and the Rosary. We here at Awaken all use Hallow every day and love it. To learn more or give it a try, visit hallow.app/awaken.